Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 733A, and today's date is August 3rd, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Economy is Stalled, Economic Collapse Momentum Accelerates. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Tuesday, I'll be uploading a new interview with Dr. Duke Pesta. Now, he is the person who is out there doing about 400 different talks around the country, talking about Common Core, and this was a really great interview with him, and I will be placing it up on the X22 Report Spotlight channel. If you are on the X22 Report Spotlight alert system, you will get an email. If you've joined the X22 Report Spotlight channel, YouTube should notify you that that video has been uploaded. If you do not see that, you can just go right to the YouTube channel and you can view the video. You just have to type in X22 Report Spotlight and the video should pop up. If you want to come to the x22report.com site, you can come to the site. I will place the video on the right-hand side. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand out in Greece, they're under capital controls, the stock market's been closed, but it seems that the stock market reopened Monday, today. And as soon as it opened, shares opened lower by 23%. And we have to watch this very carefully because we understand that Greece is completely bankrupt. We understand people are going to be selling off. We understand that Greece, at this point in time, we don't know if these bailout talks will go through. Right now, the IMF says they're sitting on the sidelines. Other reports are saying no, they are working with Greece. But we understand they want a debt haircut because they know Greece will completely collapse with all this debt. They cannot make it. And this is why they're pushing for a debt haircut. I mean, think about it. More austerity on the people, people not working, people closing down their businesses, stores, people aren't shopping. It's a complete disaster. Now, we've been talking about the Eurozone and how it's really not in a recovery. We've been talking about how they're saying that, yes, look, we see manufacturing picking up, inflation's under control, we see that the unemployment rate around the Eurozone is doing better. And then all of a sudden, S&P comes out, just like they did with the United States, and of course the United States sued them when they downgraded them, but they came out and they said the European Union outlook is now revised to negative from stable. So they're indicating there is a problem in the Eurozone. Now, we knew this all along. We knew the Eurozone is completely imploding on itself. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the European leaders of the Eurozone who weren't elected, they might maybe raid the S&P offices, they might start litigation. They're going to deny all of this, just like the United States did. But this tells us, at this point in time, there are major, major problems in the Eurozone. No matter what they say, they can tell us they're recovering, but when we look at the actual data, yes, they tell us the unemployment's at 11.1%, but the thing is, the unemployment numbers are continually moving up. Very slowly, but they're moving up. 31,000 people the last time. It wasn't enough to push it to 11.2%, but the amount of people that are continually losing their jobs, it's continually ticking up. The same with youth unemployment. Here in the United States and around the world, we're seeing layoffs are continuing. Now, we're seeing the oil prices being pushed down once again. Now, this is to hurt Russia. Because what we have to understand at this point is that the United States government central bankers are doing this to put pressure on Russia to get out of Ukraine and out of Syria. But what we're seeing around the world right now is a lot of companies are starting to lay off. I mean, we see and we understand, because we mentioned this before, Shell is laying off 6,500 people. British utility Centrica is laying off 6,000 jobs. We know Chevron is 1,500. Saipem, 8,800. Univita of Florida, 1,000 people. Roberts, Hawaii, 102. Southeast Home Care, 217. Walter Energy, 545. Ingram Micro, 540. It's continuing nonstop. And as more and more people are laid off, where are they going to find work? It's going to be very, very difficult to find work. And we can see at this point in time, the U.S. government central bankers, they have to manipulate all the calculations because none of it makes sense anymore. I mean, initial jobless claims, manipulated. Unemployment, manipulated. GDP, manipulated. Inflation, manipulated. But we can see from the data right now, the people are not spending their money out in retail. They're not spending their money in auto sales. They're not spending their money in homes, purchasing new homes. I mean, personal spending only rose about 0.2%. But this is the slowest growth since February. Now, we have to remember, they're telling us that auto sales are fantastic. Home sales are incredible. Retail is just fine. Then why don't we see the spending? It should be way up. And the only reason it ticked up a little bit is because gas prices moved up a little bit. If people are spending their money, that means they're buying goods. If they're buying goods, that means the manufacturers are producing. But we see the ISM manufacturing data has come out and it dropped. It's down from 53.5 to 52.7 in July. How can this be? And of course, it missed expectation. This is the weakest since March of this year. So what we had was a complete decline of manufacturing from about September of last year up until March. Then we had a small increase of manufacturing, and here we are back down. So that was a dead cat bounce. And of course, the automobile makers are out there telling us that everything is fantastic. Auto sales are incredible. And of course, as we know, auto sales, gas sales, all push up retail. But the thing is, when we look at this very closely, and of course the corporate media is making a very big deal, that, GM is on fire. Their sales are out of this world. It's incredible. And we see that, yes, they're saying that sales have jumped by 6.4% compared to a year earlier. Well, how can this be? Because we see the numbers. We know people aren't spending. We know people are being laid off. Manufacturing's down. So what caused the jump in auto sales? Well, when you look at this very closely, you kind of see where it's all coming from. We see that the private purchasing of automobiles declined. Where do we see the purchasing? We see it from the government. The government itself is buying the GM cars hand over fist. So basically what they're doing, they're saying, okay, we see the sales are declining. We better ramp up our purchasing. Now, does the government really have the money to purchase these automobiles? No, they're borrowing it. Fleet deliveries in July were down 20% year over year. We see reduced sales in rental customers. And commercial sales are also down. Government sales were up 38%, with deliveries to state and local governments up 59%. All the sales are coming from the government. They're not coming from the everyday person. Why is that? Because the everyday person is tapped out. They're losing their jobs. They're getting part-time work. Their credit is bad. It's getting harder and harder to buy a car because they know they can't afford it. So the government is taking up the slack. I mean, if you look at the housing industry, isn't it really the same thing? The people aren't out there purchasing the homes. So they have investment companies, hedge funds, taking the free money from the central bank, and they're purchasing the homes by the thousands, holding on to them to drive prices up, and we're seeing prices are coming down. You know something? I just spoke to someone today who's putting their house up for sale because they thought this was the best time to sell their house. And their house has been on the market for 4 weeks now. People have come and taken a look, no offers. And the real estate agent is saying, you're going to have to lower the price. Why? Why do we have to lower? This is an extremely incredible market. Well, because you haven't received any offers. And that's really the rule of thumb. In about 3 to 4 weeks, if you haven't gotten any type of offer, you lower the price. And now they are starting the process. They're chasing the market. They'll lower the price. The people are going to come and look and take and wait to see if the price goes down even further. We experienced this back in 2007 going into 2008. The same thing is happening right now. People are going to chase the market. And people say, who cares about real estate? Well, I hate to say this, but real estate here, when it collapses, this is basically an indicator of how the economy is doing. Because if people have work and they have good jobs and they're making the money and they have good credit, they go out and they take out a mortgage and they buy a house. But we're not seeing this. We're seeing the opposite. We're seeing the central banks create this for us. And it cannot be sustained. And they realize, and they know this cannot be sustained forever. They don't have the resources to do this. Yes, they can keep creating money. They can keep purchasing the homes, but pretty soon the entire country will be all these homes that are purchased and nobody owns them except for one company. And they won't need people in the mortgage departments. As we've seen, many people have been laid off. We also see construction spending is the weakest since November of 2014. Well, if housing is doing so well and people are coming out and purchasing, and we have college graduates who want houses, people want new houses, things are just not going the way they thought it would go. Things are falling apart. One indicator after another, we are seeing the economy collapse. It's stalling, and the collapse is accelerating. This is what we are seeing right now. And of course, the central bankers, the U.S. government, they realize this. They know what's going on. So basically, they're suppressing oil prices to put pressure on Russia right now. Just a month or two ago, the IMF was coming out saying, okay, we miscalculated. It looks like Russia's economy is improving. The sanctions really aren't having an effect. The oil prices aren't really having an effect. Now the IMF has come out and said, okay, wait a minute. The oil prices are being pushed down once again, suppressed. And these new rounds of sanctions have been placed on Russia. Well, wait a minute. Because of that, we recalculated, and now Russia is going to see a 9% cut in their GDP. Now, you have to remember, the IMF is always wrong in their predictions. They're never on target whatsoever. They're saying this, and they're using it for propaganda purposes. That's about it. But what we're seeing right now is they're making their push for the next event. And they're trying to put pressure on Russia right now. This is what we are seeing. And we know the economy is falling apart. And we know they're bringing in the illegals to take up the slack because they need the low-paying jobs filled. They need people with no credit to come in here so they can get credit to purchase automobiles, to purchase homes, to go on health insurance, to help corporations fill those positions so they don't have to pay the $3,000 penalty on Obamacare. And what's very interesting about all this, because we know Obama is continually tweaking his memorandum about immigration, how once they come over the border, they're in this country, they get work permits, and they're sent off. We are seeing now that the U.S. is going to issue more green cards than the populations of Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina combined. What does this tell us? It tells us the American people are tapped out and they need fresh blood here in the U.S. to keep this system going. Because this is part of their agenda. And this is why they want these people coming into the United States. Because as soon as they cross, they get a working permit. Once they're in here, they can buy a car. They can buy a house. They get benefits from the government. Because look at this. When a foreign citizen is issued a green card, it guarantees them the following benefits inside the United States: lifetime work authorization, access to federal welfare, access to Social Security and Medicare, the ability to obtain citizenship and voting privileges, and the immigration of their family members and elderly relatives. Now, I have no problem with people coming into this country. This is how this country was built. But they need to go through the proper channels. Just jumping over the border does not make you legal. But of course, Obama is saying this does make you legal. Now, they don't do any background checks. They don't see if this person's a criminal. They send them over to the safe zones in the United States. And they're issued all of this so they can go out into the workforce. This is what we see happening here in the United States right now. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.